Good evening, everyone. Welcome to State of the Snowpack. I'd like to take a quick opportunity to acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded homeland of the Kootenay peoples. What is State of the Snowpack? Well, we're hopefully going to have a community conversation that helps save lives in the backcountry. Tonight we've got Lisa Larson from Avalanche, Canada, and Steve Kite from Lake Lodge. I'm going to read out a quick disclaimer, then we'll have those guys go ahead. The information we present are our own observations to the best of our ability. This presentation does not replace actual avalanche training. Sign up to an AST or CAA course this winter. What you do with the information we present is your responsibility. Use it responsibly. And I'll welcome Lisa to the mic.
No, because it's just that's their screen. That's their protect. Maybe the photo isn't down. That's not. It's not this. That's the. That's the document.
Okay, I had plans to stand over here, so I'm gonna try and make it happen. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Lisa Larson. I am the Avalanche Canada field team lead for the Fernie area. And I'm here just to do a snowpack update. And I come bearing good news and bad news, but they're kind of the same thing. So we really got off to a good start. How many people feel like we got off to a good start this year? Yeah, we've been enjoying something that we don't enjoy every single year, and that has been a fairly stable snowpack. And so that has allowed us to do is really just worry about surface instabilities. And so those have kind of been your storm slabs and wind slabs. And other than that, we haven't really had any deep instabilities this year. So we're getting a really good start to the season, which is good. And then the bad is that we're going into a bit of a dry spell right now. So, but with that, with our nice snowpack that we have, our stable snowpack that we have, we're hoping that it's going to resist these really cold temperatures that are forecasted for this weekend and the dry snow, but we'll soon see. Okay, just a couple graphs. I'm not going to go too much into graphs, and I'm not even really going to talk too much about the graphs, but I think kind of what I thought was really interesting about the graphs is you have your amount of snow that we've got this year. So the black line is currently what we're seeing this year, and you can see in December here we had that little bump, and then now we're kind of leveling out with this little bit of a dry spell now through this early part of January. But what was really interesting was when I looked at the temperature graph, and you can see here that the max temps are the red and min temps are the blue. We've had a pretty stable temperature through this season so far, with a few bumps early season. So around that early part of December, we saw high elevation temperatures. And that was kind of what set us up for some melt freeze crust that we saw early on, and a little bit of rain early in the season.
Yeah.
And then you can see down here, kind of in January, we've had a little bit of a drop in temperature. So it's really interesting to see, because just looking at these two graphs, you almost get a good sense of what's been happening with the snowpack through consistent amounts of snowfall through the season. and very nice even temperatures with no real dips and no real highs. So we kind of have like, that's what really set off our good snowpack for this year. And so when we kind of look at going through the season, like what does that look like? A really good practice is just kind of like thinking about what happens through the season and just sort of marking that down and writing it down as it goes, because that kind of helps you keep connected with the snowpack over time. So I just sort of jotted down a few things. You know, we started out in November. That was when we really first saw our snowfall. And everyone gets really those early season pumped to get out there. And you see people going out into stuff where you're like, I do not need to wreck my skis yet in that early November. But people are pumped and excited for the season. And we had about 50 centimeters of snow, but that was up high. And down below, we weren't really seeing any snow yet. And then we had that warming event where we had that first bit of snow on the ground. And then we had this warming event where we had a lot of precipitation, and it actually saturated that low level of snow on the ground. And then that kind of like ended up that we had this moist snow at the ground level. And then we started to get more and more snow. Through November, we had several storms with precipitation, and that's where I'm talking about. We kept getting a little bit of snow with these warm temperatures, and it was really kind of just building our snowpack nicely, and it started moving down to the valley bottom. And then when we had early December, that is when we had that next big bump in, it was actually a solar event that warmed the surface, and then there was some clearing. So how many people, just show of hands, have been hearing about the November 6th week layer? So December 6th, we've had this layer, and we date layers by the day that they were buried. So we had a clearing between the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of December. And then which created a melt freeze crust from solar on south-facing slopes. But on north-facing slopes, we actually ended up with a surface hoar layer. So a surface hoar layer is those feathery crystals that stand up, and when they get buried, they can become a persistent weak layer as they get buried deeper and deeper. And so we had this December 6th or 7th layer, it's getting called different things of when it got buried. For several days, we had a good cycle on it, actually. We were seeing good avalanches on it, but they weren't extremely large. There was no real notable events. There was good size 2s and 2.5s, that type of thing, but no real notable events there. And then we just kept getting that consistent snow. So it was just been really nice. It's felt kind of coastal around here and go out. And I don't think I've actually, just a few weeks ago was the first time I was like, it's cold, and it was only like -10, and I was just like, I'm not ready yet. So yeah, we've been having these really nice mild temperatures with these just basic preset inputs. And then we had this just a little bit of cold, this like first push of cold temperatures. And you see on that number 7 there, I talk about near surface faceting. So when we got this, we actually had some wind slab development. So we were skiing, it was kind of slabby, a little bit variable. And then we had like 3 or 4 days of cold temperatures, and those wind slabs went away. So what actually is happening there is those cold temperatures are turning those wind slabs kind of into facets, which are snow crystals that don't bond well to one another. And so we actually end up getting some pretty nice skiing after that. And what was really cool around that time was we were looking in the Mountain Information Network, and there was a lot of you going out. And the one thing that we saw consistently through that little bit of a cold spell was no instabilities, great powder skiing, watching out for sloughs over and over and over again through those bins. So I just wanted to bring that piece up because we often see people post wins when something negative has happened. So they've seen an avalanche or they've been involved in an avalanche. But the opposite is just as valuable to the forecasters as well. So when we see a lot of similar people posting similar things, that provides us confidence that what is people are seeing out there is true. So it was really nice to see that, and thank you to everybody that posted and been through that spell, because good skiing is good information for us as well. That it just reinforces what we're putting in the forecast, and it helps us out a lot too. And then now really we've just been dealing with these wind slabs. So now we kind of had that cold snow, we had a big wind event, and now we have wind slab and wind affected snow kind of everywhere. And that's really what we've been dealing with. Was anybody out over the weekend? Show of hands, who was out on the weekend? And of those people were people seeing wind slabs in the Alpine? Show of hands. Alpine wind slabs. How about tree line wind slabs? So what we are finding with these winds that we had, this wind that we had, is that it was very strong, not necessarily in the Fernie area, but actually more in the South Rockies and down in the Corbin area and in the Harvey area. Were a lot stronger winds. And when you have really strong winds, not only do they develop wind slabs in the Alpine, but they actually develop wind slabs further down slope. So sometimes you'll go into tree line features where you're like, okay, shelter terrain, it's going to be okay. And then you get surprised by a wind slab that's further down slope. So we were seeing a bit of that. And now it seems like the wind slabs have kind of, they've run their course. And I actually did the forecast for this area tonight, and I published it with no avalanche problems today. So it seems like we're in a good spot. Okay, so today, as of today, like I said, we just published the forecast. We are at 3 times low, and so below tree lines low, and the Alpine is low. And it looks like we're gonna have that kind of for the next couple days for sure. And so we're in a good spot. And one thing I think we struggle with as forecasters is really feeling confident to be like, you should go. You should go and explore, but don't let your guard down. Just because we're saying go doesn't mean don't assess as you go. Assess as you go and keep looking for those conditions. So are there isolated wind slabs in little pockets? Feels like you could always find a wind slab somewhere. So yeah, it's a good time to go and explore right now.
Awesome.
So I actually did this clip yesterday when we were still having wind slab problem. And I had a wind slab problem in the forecast today, right up until 4 o'clock when I was just about to publish, and I was like, no, it's been so many days without any avalanche activity. We haven't had an avalanche reported since Saturday. And even on Saturday, it was like small size one wind slabs and cracking and that type of thing we were seeing. So as of today, we had no problems identified. Travel and terrain advice, I think I already mentioned this. It is a good time to explore terrain. So it is a good time to get out there. And there could be some wind slabs that are still reactive. And some of those areas where they're most likely to be triggered are on steep alpine slopes. And oftentimes it could be a hard slab. And so you get some confidence with it that it doesn't really feel like a wind slab. And then all of a sudden you get a little bit deeper in the terrain and it can surprise you. So it just, the key is to just keep assessing the whole time and make sure that you're like really kind of digging through that wind slab. How deep is it? How is it gonna trigger? Just watching out for that type of thing. As far as Avalanche summary, I mean, I looked around, I looked at all the Mountain Information Network posts, all the operators posts, all of like what's going on, what the South Rockies team has been seeing. And we haven't really been seeing anything, in anywhere really since Saturday. So maybe just a show of hands, is anybody seeing anything? Has anybody been out the last couple days that are seeing avalanches anywhere? All right. So avalanche activity is actually considered class 1 data. So we call it class 1 data. So that means when you're seeing avalanches, it's pretty obvious that there's a problem in the snowpack. So that's a good thing to know. Just because we don't see avalanches doesn't mean there isn't a problem. But not only do we have good class 1 data that the avalanche activity has really been reduced or it's none, we also have good snowpack data that says there's not really any layers of concern through the snowpack at this present time. And then we have weather data where there's a really consistent weather pattern right now with no real inputs. So those are kind of our class 1, 2, and 3 data. And it's really all kind of pointing to the same things that we're kind of in a good place right now. So this picture, I know it's kind of hard for everyone to see, but this was up in the Harvey area yesterday. Duncan was up there, and it just shows kind of like what the surfaces look like. So we're definitely seeing sastrugi. So where snow has really been blown into like a wave-like pattern. We're seeing sastrugi, that's this down here. And then you can see the kind of obvious wind effect in open areas there. And so there's a difference between wind effect and a wind slab problem. So I think we often get that confused. So wind effect is where the snow is obviously wind affected, has been developed into a slab. So it's gone through that process of being a wind slab problem where there's a slab overlying some kind of weakness over a harder surface, that's your sliding surface. And that's a wind slab problem. But now we have this wind affected snow where it's bonded to the previous surface and it's just hard snow. So it's not an avalanche problem as much as it is just wind affected snow. And the weather forecast. So this is the bad news. We are going into a period or continuing a drought period, but also the temperatures are going to drop. So the long range forecast is looking at the high pressure, big ridge coming over top of us this for the next couple days, and then looking at full temperatures around -20 and that this weekend. And so while we have a strong lower snowpack, when we have these cold temperatures, it isn't really great for the snowpack over time. So depending on how long this cold snap lasts for, we will and we are expecting to see faceting on the surface. And so that will be a layer that if that gets buried by snow, we'll have to watch that because we have a really strong snowpack. We're going to have faceted snow on top of that. And then whatever comes after that is like what we get to check out next. But it is kind of going to be a little bit sunny, so that's nice. And then forecaster confidence. So at the bottom of the forecast, the forecaster always rates their confidence. And I just thought this piece might be kind of interesting for you to see is just some of the key words out of what the confidence means. So right now, the forecaster confidence is high. So when you look at high confidence, it means that it's based on high quality information. So as I said, we've had a steady weather pattern. Our snowpack, we've verified it through multiple resources at this time, like the ski hill, Island Lake, the South Rockies field team, people being out in the field. we have good confidence in the data that we've received. And it gives us the ability to have a good judgment call. But it doesn't mean that we are 100% right. But we have good data and we have good confidence that that data and those sources are valuable to us. And then when you kind of move down to moderate confidence, we have good credible evidence, but it's a little bit few and far between. And sometimes that's where those min posts, when we see multiple min posts saying the same thing over and over again, that to us really helps increase our confidence because we're seeing that same thing observed by many people. And then the low confidence piece is when that data is fragmented and you don't really have enough good evidence to support kind of the way we're thinking or the judgment that we're making. And so that's when you see low confidence. Okay, the one thing that is kind of interesting or has been interesting this season, and it's not just in this area, we're actually seeing it kind of in the Kootenay boundary region as well, so over by Nelson and that, is the amount of glide cracks and glide avalanches. It's not that they're surprising for this area. This area typically does have glide avalanches. It's just that we had so many of them in a short period of time. And probably some of you saw, or maybe some of you in the room were part of this Instagram post that Fernie Alpine Resort posted a few days ago about all the glide cracks that they have around the resort. And just a few things about glide cracks is just that important thing to remember is they involve the entire snowpack, so from top to bottom. So in that Instagram post, Tyler Carson was talking about how we have this really strong snowpack, and that strong snowpack, because it's so bonded or so well bonded together, is just creeping down slope. And I kind of wonder if some of the reason like that's happening is we had that early season rain event with facets on the ground, and we've actually had moist facets on the ground for like kind of everywhere that we're digging profiles well into winter here. We're still seeing moist facets of ground. So I just think that's a really interesting thing. I don't really know a ton about glide cracks, but it just seems like having that moist snow at the ground has been might be a reason why we're seeing so many of them. I did want to bring up one of the common misconceptions around glide cracks is that they only release when it's warm. I don't know if some of you remember last season, we had glide cracks forming, and it was like a really wide facet layer at the base of our snowpack because we had such a shallow snowpack last year. And then we got some snow on top of that, but it got really cold. And then right as soon as it got cold, we saw a bunch of glide crack releases. So it just kind of just a misconception that it's only when warm conditions exist that you're going to see that. Release of glide cracks is really difficult to predict. And so just the best mitigation strategy is to stay away from them. And then another thing is like recognizing terrain that could produce glide cracks. So anything that has smooth terrain features, so grassy slopes. So over on Mount Fernie, if you live here in the summer, you'll see those areas that are like grassy slope. And those are the areas right now that have glide cracks and glide releases in them. So kind of knowing the terrain that you ski in the summer actually has some advantages. So I already asked this, so I'm going to bypass this slide. So just a few takeaways from this is that we are in a good place right now. And so we can take that into this high pressure system and just know we're in a good place and that hopefully this cold doesn't last too long and doesn't facet the surface too much where it creates some kind of problem down the road. But we're in a good place. And so we should be skiing great lines in February and March. So let's keep that in mind when it's -20 this weekend. It's a good time to explore and travel in the backcountry, but that doesn't mean that you don't assess as you go. You want to keep looking and keep like kind of understanding what's going on with the snowpack as you go. So assessing at each kind of stage, below tree line, alpine. If you're going on a north facing slope, is that surface floor there? Are you going on a south facing slope? Is that melt freeze crest somewhere? Just make sure you're kind of keeping your head in the snow, it's not just open season. And then cold temperatures this weekend, and I just said go and explore. But this weekend it's going to be cold, so make sure if you're going out to explore this weekend that you have thought about that with your trip plan. So you have increased gear in case you have an incident where you need to keep warm. Or maybe you shorten your trip plans a little bit and do fitness laps close to home instead of like doing big epic traverses. Just making sure that you're considering the other hazards other than avalanches since you're going out exploring. And then this is just a quick, little reminder, and you would have seen this slide last time if you were here in December. But if anybody's seen me present before, I nagged on about MINs and Mountain Information Network posts. I just really feel like it is the most important thing in this community for people to be posting Mountain Information Network posts. And it's not lost on me that it is kind of a pain at the end of the day to go in there and figure it out and where was I and all of that kind of stuff. But it is well worth it. So just a show of hands, how many people in this room have read a MIN post? So the blue dot, okay, keep your hands up, now keep your hand up if you have submitted a MIN post. Okay, so I would really love to see that. Okay, thank you for your service. I would love to see those numbers be so much more closer because the only way that system works is if we're contributing. So you have to give to get. And if we only have a few people giving, then maybe they'll stop giving and then you'll stop giving. And so we need to get more people putting those MIN posts in. And I'm just going to dispel just a couple myths before I hand this over to Steve. A few things that we hear from people are that I don't feel like I know enough to submit to the Mountain Information Network. And I can tell you right now that you do. So this is a great thing. Was there weather? Like, was it cloudy? Was it sunny? Was it windy? Like, you're seeing those observations. Those are easy to post. Did you see avalanches? Yes or no? If you saw them, like, what's just some brief information about it or just a picture? Like, that's all we need. You can get a lot of information. Was the riding good? Like I said 2 weeks ago when we were watching all of your posts about how it was epic powder, how you were not triggering anything, your slough management, that's really good information. That tells us a lot. And were there signs of instability? So just cracking, shooting cracks, lumping, all of that kind of stuff is good information as well. And it doesn't have to be fancy. You don't need test results like ECTP 15 down 40 on surface floor. We don't need to know that. We don't even really need test results. Just getting information out there of what you're seeing is just about as valuable or more valuable than test results. The other myth that I want to dispel is that you're going to blow up your secret stash. I don't know. I think people know where to go around here. But if you have found like the secret nugget, the best place, instead of posting it right where your line is, just post it at the staging area. So if you're going out to tunnel and you have this great little line that you figured out, just post it at the parking lot. It really just needs to be in the area. So the Lizard Range Flathead for this operating area of the South Rockies. So those are kind of two of the myths that I just wanted to dispel there. And hopefully that gives you some just positive vibes for posting bids. Okay, that's me. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Lisa. I think we'll take a 5-minute intermission. You guys good with that? We'll get going here. I'd like to introduce Steve FERNIE, ACMG ski guide, longtime Lake Washington. I'll hand it off to him.
Okay. Okay, welcome everybody, and it's great to hear Lisa talk about the snow conditions and the low hazard. So
I guess it should be using the mic. I hate these things. What I really want to talk about is just a few sort of add-ons to what Robin started last time when he was talking about safe travel techniques, and a few other little tricks that we can sort of add in there. I don't want to talk too much about that. I want to talk more about terrain, because right now we have pretty much all the terrain available to us, right? According to what Lisa says, and according to what we're seeing out there as well. I guess one thing I want to point out was, when was the last time anybody saw or heard of a bomb going off at the ski hill? Has it been about a week? Yesterday? Oh, okay. What were you shooting yesterday?
Gobblers.
Gobblers?
It's like a bug area skier to check on wind slabs, and we got a bathtub.
Right. So they got no results. And in the previous one, which would have been a week ago or something like that, would have been something similar. No, not really. Some wind slabs, and that's about it for results, right? And on the lake last week, we had a couple of thin wind slabs, and we're skiing almost everywhere. So it's you know, it's difficult because you start to run out of terrain, and I'm going to talk a bit about that. But the reality is that you have so much available to you right now that we wouldn't normally have.
Let's not do that, ready?
Okay, I also want to be totally honest with you. I haven't been skiing Tunnel Creek that much in the last 10 or 15 years. I skied it quite a bit before that, but in the last 10 or 15 years, I don't have as much experience as many people in the room here. I'm going to point out while we go through some things, the high degree of variability in the Tunnel Creek area, and I've been asked to pretty much talk about the Tunnel Creek area. So it's a quite a variable place with high Alpine and all sorts of things. So we'll be going through that a little bit. Robin last time was able to talk about specific terrain features of Fishbowl, and he went into quite a bit of detail. You know, you should stop here and regroup, and you know, go from this safe place and that sort of thing. And Tunnel Creek is quite a bit bigger than that, so we're not going to really be able to do that. But we will get into a few specifics in the Tunnel Creek area. And what I'd like to do is invite people up when I'm going through the terrain to come up and talk about a few different features or what they see in the snow or where the wind slabs might be or that sort of thing. Okay, can we try this again? There we go. Except my back. Okay, Robin did a great job. I wasn't here in person, but I reviewed his presentation last time, and he did a great job. And he comes at things many times from a ski hill perspective. I come at things from a guiding perspective, and the backcountry perspective is a little bit more in tune with the guiding perspective. He did a great job of talking about ski touring and stuff, but I just want you to know that I come at it from a guiding perspective. So our relationship with the hazard is quite different. So at the ski hill, you have a controlled area and an uncontrolled group going in there. That's not how we approach ski touring or ski guiding. In ski guiding, or when you're in your groups, you need to be a controlled group going into a very uncontrolled area. Not as important right now because the
there's not much to control. It's, the avalanche hazard is so low, but we still have we need the control in the way, or the places we ski, the way we navigate, so that we don't go off cliffs, so that we don't hurt ourselves and all that sort of stuff, because we don't have the patrol there to back us up and come and pick us up right away, right? It takes further search and rescue a little bit longer. Way longer. Okay, so I wanted to have the group think a little bit about who is skiing in Tunnel Creek these days. And my daughter and wife and I were skiing there last week, and we saw some ski race guys going up, or one guy in particular lapping home run. And I'd never seen that before. I don't know how many runs he did, but he was going to do 20,000 vertical feet or something. So it's probably like 6 or 7 laps on home run. And he passed us, I don't know, 3 times. It was a little ridiculous. He passed us many times anyway, when we did our one run. So there's lots of different skill levels out there, both in touring and in their avalanche skills, and in people's fitness levels, and also people's risk tolerance. So when we think about those different levels, it adds to the variability of Tunnel Creek for me, because we have some people that have been skiing there for years and are going for specific shoots and over again, and the fitness people, and it just adds to the whole variability of the place. And we have different people going there for different reasons, right? Some people are just wanting to ski some mellow blades and steep shoots, or alpine features and views. Now, as Lisa mentioned, it's a great time to investigate. And I think on one of my slides, maybe it shows, well, actually, who uses Gaia? Right, so lots of people using Gaia. If you put on the public tracks are all over just above the cabin and almost nowhere else. So that's sort of the, the standard lines, I would think, right? And we should be trying to move away from those, and probably a lot of those are actually skied out right now too, right? So now is the best time to move away and investigate some other new places. Probably most of you know already, but there's now 3 backcountry cabins in that area. So if you think of the day traffic and the people staying in those 3 different cabins, there's a lot of people in Tunnel Creek these days. So there's the McDermott cabin. There's the new one in Mercury Bowl. Yeah, it's quite a bit lower down. I don't know. Has anybody seen that one yet? Nobody seen it? Yeah, my daughter and I were out there in the area today. We didn't go up that one, but there's also another one in Webster Creek, which is just below Mammoth Head. So the area is getting busier and busier in there. And then, of course, there's the Tunnel Creek cabin itself, right? Do I have big thumbs or what? Or maybe I just need a drink. Yeah, so at just before the ski season started, we had just enough snow, and there was 20 cars, 25 cars in that Tunnel Creek parking lot. People tried to go up, right? And then when the skiing was really busy at Christmas, well, it was really busy at Tunnel Creek as well. And what happens during these times? Well, there it is. You can see there's the Tunnel Creek hut, and you can see the traffic up here. And there's only one little line going out this way, and there was a couple of course going down Homerun over here. Already mentioned it. Time to push out and go to some new places. I'll give you a little bit of an example at Island Lake. So I worked the last 8 days ending on Sunday. And on Sunday, I skied probably 4 or 5 runs or areas that I haven't skied in 5 or 6 years. And I do a lot of skiing up there. And we were going all over the place. And it had been about a week since I triggered a little wind slab. And as Lisa mentioned, the wind slabs were, or the wind effect was everywhere, but they'd faceted it out and stuff. And we could go anywhere. So we were only missing a few areas, and that was only because the ski quality wasn't quite there. It was sastrugi, or the wind slab was a little bit too hard. Right. So in the professional avalanche world, we have unbelievable number of meetings. We don't just go out there and ski, but we have like an hour-long meeting in the morning, an hour-long meeting at the end of the day, and discuss all sorts of things. And one of the things we come up with is a strategic mindset for the day, and we set that every morning before we go out, right? So I just wanted to review some of these because your risk level is really associated with this strategic mindset. And right now is a time when we're in a zone of the strategic mindsets that we aren't normally in. So assessment is one of the stages, and it's a high degree of uncertainty about conditions, first encountering the terrain for the season, so at the very beginning of the season, entering into new terrain. So in this case, if you're going to Tunnel Creek and you're going to go to a new place, then you should be in a little bit of the assessment mode. Or after substantial weather events, and we're not going to see that for a little while. Stepping out. So that's when you've been skiing around a bunch and had one sort of level of avalanche hazard, and now you're gaining some confidence. So conditions are improving. We're gaining confidence in our assessment. The stepping out mindset covers a range from stepping out very cautiously to stepping out confidently. So assessment and stepping out, and status quo. So status quo is a bit of a difficult one because for us at Island Lake anyway, because it means that we've probably skied a bunch of stuff, and now those have tracks in it, but maybe we can ski a few more things, but we're not changing the avalanche hazard at all at the moment right now. Evidence continues to support the current conditions. Comfort level for exposure under those conditions has been reached. So this is actually a photo from Island Lake right here. And this is a nice ski run that we ski a lot. And it gets skied towards the end of the day a lot. And under status quo, it's probably been skied once already. And the tracks are getting there, like maybe healing a little bit. And you can ski it again, but you're not skiing something that fresh anymore. Stepping back, that's probably when we're going to have this old snow layer now on top, the faceted snow that Lisa was talking about, and we'll probably have surface hoar, and we'll also probably have some drummy wind slabs in the Alpine, and anything new that falls on top of that is going to be very suspect, right? So that's when we're going to be, let's say it snows only 15 centimeters, we're going to be stepping back and seeing how that 15 centimeters reacts. And we have to close a bunch of our runs at Island Lake. And for me, I would be reducing my objectives if I was going up to Tunnel Creek when this condition changes, right? Yeah. Stay. Why does it do that? There we go. Okay. Open season. I heard Lisa use that term once in her talk there. It's kind of a scary one because open season, you can go anywhere and do anything. At the ski hill right now I guess the visibility wasn't very good today, right? No? So open season, for those that have been around for a little while, is when you start to see the Curry head wall opening up and people starting to ski that quite a bit. And boots hacking above the bear is probably going on right now, right? To a certain yesterday. Okay, yeah. So that's sort of the beginning of what you see for open season at the ski hill, right? At Island Lake, it's again, haven't skied those runs in 5 years. That's sort of open season for us there. So a high degree of confidence in the hazard assessment. Hazard assessment suggests that only small avalanches are possible in very isolated terrain features. Any skiable terrain may be considered with due attention to the possibility of small surface avalanches. So one of my best friends is a patroller at Castle Mountain and cat ski guide there. And he hurt himself very severely. One knee he had shattered his, what do you call it? Tibial plateau. Yep. And it was a really small avalanche. It was probably only like from Alistair to me or a little bit bigger here, like this open area. But it took him off a cliff and then a second cliff. And he hit some trees, right? So when I think about open season or us finding new lines and stuff, I also got to think, you got to watch the exposure below you. It may not even be an avalanche. It may just be a fall because you're going to some place that's a little crazier than normal, right? So for me, that becomes the hazard. It's small incidents that are bigger because of the terrain that we're in. You all got that, right? I do. That's your warning. And then the last one is spring diurnal. We're probably not going to get that for a while, but we do sort of have once in a while a wet time at this time of year, maybe after this cold snap. In that case, I'm oftentimes in Tunnel Creek quite a bit at that stage. That's when snowmobiling's opened up already, right? And so the hazard assessment suggests that only substantial hazard is from wet avalanches during the afternoon, during the freeze-thaw cycle. And so in those situations, you got to watch for the overnight freeze to make sure that the next day it's going to be solid first thing in the morning again. So that's the mindset that we use. So again, spring diurnal, open season. Let's see if I can go backwards on this thing. Stepping back, status quo, stepping out, and initial assessment. So this is what we use every morning, and I'm sure you guys can find it somewhere on the internet. But when you go out and start to do your trip planning, this is sort of a good thing to think about as you're having your cup of coffee on your way out. Any questions so far? Okay, I'm going to try and risk things here. I'm going to do that for you. I'm gonna move to a terrain discussion, which is Google Earth based. Get this right. There we go. That's the first part. So as I mentioned, Tunnel Creek has a lot of things going on with it. I'm going to just set the scene. Who has never been to Tunnel Creek, actually? Ski touring. So there's a few in here. Some people are going to know this really well. But I'll just set the scene to start with here. Find my glasses. Oh, big enough. I'll just talk loud. And my goal here is to show you some terrain and then have some people come up and point out a few things. We won't use the fancy pointer. We can just go old school like that. So let's just start in Fernie over here. Okay, the town of Fernie. And then I mentioned I work up at Island Lake. Over here. And at Island Lake, we have a lot of runs. And it's a fairly big place. Then it encompasses the Lizard Range here, Mount Baldy over here, and a spur of Mount Fernie right here. So we have a high degree of variability in our terrain as well. And, we have lots of wind effect up here, and we'll have some sun effect over here, and we'll have some faceting and surface ore creation on the back sides of these a lot. So we have, just like Tunnel Creek, we have kind of stuff that's on the Lizard Range and stuff that's away from the Lizard Range a little bit. Okay, we'll go to We'll just go over to Fernie Alpine Resort here.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the primary problems they have at the ski hill for avalanches? Primary trigger, natural trigger. Cornices, okay? Cornices all the way across the top here. How about a tunnel creek? Is there some cornices? A few places, yeah. Lots of if you go ski touring over into here, you'll find some surface soil and some faceted snow in behind here. If you go ski touring, there's a bunch more interesting places and some sun crests and stuff. Now let's go over to Tunnel Creek. So down on the Lizard Range to the Tunnel Creek area. Okay. What's the major difference I see here from the ski hill to Tunnel Creek? Trees and not as many rocky outcrops at the top. Let's go to the parking lot. What's the big hazard here? Car accidents. It's probably, somebody already mentioned it to me earlier tonight. It's the highest hazard that you're going to have, especially right now, right? Getting on and off the highway. What's that?
People drilling gas tanks.
People drilling gas tanks, although that seems to be, I hope that's done now. Okay, then we have the access road up. Looks like that. Most people only go to here, where you're going to go up to the cabin. And I'll show that actually. This is the typical skid trail to the cabin. Thought I had the cabin on here, but the cabin sits right in there somewhere. Yeah. Zigzag is in the wrong place a little bit. How about the access route in? Any hazards there? I beg your pardon?
What about beyond those?
Yeah, so there is actually 3 places where I'm pretty sure avalanches will hit the road, right? They're not going to hit it tomorrow and they're not going to hit it next week, but the week after that, if we have a big dump on top of this weakness, or this weakness that is building, then there is some potential. So the first one is the Beyond Awesome path. Come on, you. There we go. That looks right there. It's right at that switchback. And I've seen it come down there and into the creek beside the trail there. Next one is the home run area. Debatable with how far it crosses there. Has anybody seen it cross the road there? Nobody? Okay, it sure looks like it in when you look at the terrain and the tree cover there. And then this is another one I've only seen twice. But this comes right down to where you crest out just before you turn right and go up to the cabin. So 3 places along the road where in extreme hazard you could have some problems. Now I went through the Tunnel Creek area. And some of the maps that some people in this room actually made, I haven't made too many maps about it or anything, but and I kind of, what I wanted to do was get a better sense of the zones, and within those zones, there's often specific influences on the avalanche hazards. So the first zone that I have is the Tunnel Creek front side. If it's going to work. There we go. Tunnel Creek front side. Okay, who has skied in the sunny side, slide side area here? Put your hand up. Okay, put your hands down. How about home run? Quite a few, lots. Yeah. Beyond awesome. Yeah, few. How about in North Tunnel and the Morrissey Chutes? Right. Okay, just yell out some of the influences on the avalanche hazard that we would have right here. Anybody? Sun effect. Yes. Have you seen any this year?
Yes.
Yes. So at Island Lake on some of our south-facing slopes, we had some. So the snow gets sticky a bit, and then the next day there was a crust, so it wrecked all the skiing, right? But when I was up here last week, it was untouched because we've had cloud cover for so much of the year. The surface snow was awesome, and the skiing was really quite good in most of those areas, right? What other problems do we have, avalanche or not?
Wind loading.
Wind loading? When was it wind loaded in these areas?
Beyond awesome.
Beyond awesome, and where? Up in here? Well, I mean, the prevailing wind is this way, right? The southwest winds. So you might get a little bit over here. I would be more concerned with the northwest wind putting something up here that would be above me, I guess. It's on the other side that we get most of the wind loading, I would think. You might get some wind effect, especially in the top here, right? You'll get some wind slabs, some little drift behind trees and that sort of thing, though, right? Okay, let's look at the next one. I called this one Upper Tunnel Creek. I don't know if anybody else has a different. Anybody call that something different? This is a very undulating piece of terrain with some steep sides to it and little cliffs and stuff like that, right? So highly variable, this zone here. So what do we see here? How about cornices on this one? Yeah, so cornices all along here, right? What's happening over here? Stripped and sun effect, probably, right? I myself triggered, it was a serious 1.5 because it was a small feature, but it piled up into some trees right in here somewhere like 25 years ago. And it was on surface ore. So we've got cornices here, sun effect here, probably some wind affected places, and we've got surface ore instabilities. We got some avalanche paths that run down to the access to the cabin even. So Upper Tunnel's got a lot of things going on in it. But there's some really nice runs right up here too, right? So let's go, I believe that's yeah, the next one here. Okay, that's the McDermott cabin in the middle. My daughter and I just snowmobiled up there this morning and had a quick look around. Who has skied in this area? Put your hands up. Quite a few, maybe half the crowd. The most common, my understanding is the most common skiing down up here is sort of in this area. Who has skied some of these chutes? See 1 or 2 hands right the back there. Who's planning on skiing these chutes tomorrow? There was a couple of people I was talking to, they were mentioning it earlier. Okay, so again, we have, what's the problem here? So that's southwest over there. Wind coming this way, cornices. How big are the cornices there though compared to at the ski hill? Not that big, eh? No. So sometimes what will happen is it depends on what's on the other side, how much fetch there is to put some snow over there. Sometimes the ridge crest isn't steep enough or something, and the corn, instead of building a cornice, it'll put the snow down below, you know, in the start zones of some of these places here. Same thing with many 10, I would imagine. There's been some bad accidents back here, though. There was a fatality I don't know exactly where it was, but it was somewhere in these trees, I believe. And it was a small group that sort of got splintered, and so only a couple of people were in that area, and they weren't able to self-extricate quick enough, I guess. But it was quite foggy when we were there this morning. But these shoots look awesome in here too. Yeah. Gonna spin around to the next one here. Oh, there we go. That's a sort of an odd angle, but so here's beyond awesome. There's awesome in here. Who has skied in there? Few less people. It's a bit more of a, like the cabin is down below here. I guess it's a bit more of a walk, not that much, because you can tip right over there. There's home run right here, so you're on the top here. But what's on the other side? This isn't a very good angle, this one. Cliffs. Same thing with this upper McDermott in here, right? Cliffs. Sort of troublesome terrain. All in here. And I've heard of a few different groups getting separated from each other in that area too. Little powder frenzy going on, and you know, somebody pounds it out, goes a little further, somebody else loses track of where they went, and it's pretty easy to get separated in there. And how's the communication in these two areas here? You got cell service back there? I don't think so. I was very surprised though that from the cabin here, I could hit the Island Lake Lodge repeater. I don't know about steel. I should have turned over and tried that too, but I could hit the Island Lake Lodge repeater right from the cabin, which was sort of comforting on my handheld radio, but there's no instant access. So how are you going to get communication from there? You got to go back up to the top if you don't have a radio, right? So if it's a half an hour back to the top and you got to spend a half an hour trying to manage the accident to start with, you got an hour to get to in total before you actually get to call somebody. And let's say it's next week when it's minus 20. And the days are short, it's January, right? So I think about, at this time of year, I'm trying to leave as early as possible so that I'm not going to be overstaying my welcome out there. I want to know if many people had skied this far side area over here. Because I have not, but it looks really good. Who skied there?
Yes, it's good. Long road.
Yeah, and so it's kind of west facing, I guess. And the glades are nice and wide. Like it looks like the trees are spaced out nicely in there. Yeah. And how did you go up there? Did you zig
From the north tunnel access, and then up the ridge, kind of in that boundary between where you've got green and orange. And
up here?
skinned up that area.
Right.
Then you head down to the flats, and then kind of along the flats, and then getting used to one done.
Right.
And then didn't get the ridge until we were back to kind of there.
Right. Yeah. And then you can see the new Mercury cabin down there, right? So, I think they're renting that already, right? Are they renting it out already?
Yes.
Yeah. Has anybody stayed there?
I think they were hauling up beds in the last week.
Okay.
We're going this weekend.
You're going this weekend? Nice. And my understanding is it looks exactly the same as the McDermott cabin.
Yeah.
He seems to have found the shape of cabin that he wants. Because he
saw him just in all the houses.
Oh yeah? Yeah. So that cabin is it's a long ways down there. Like if you come up the normal access, you got to go a long ways to get to the cabin and a long ways to get back again. But it means it's going to see less traffic and probably be a pretty nice home base there. I haven't skied enough in there to know, but it looks awesome to me. Now this one I find quite interesting. Trespass Ridge. At Island Lake, we love our tree skiing. We've got some great big trees to ski through. But I have to say that the trees in this Trespass Ridge area, right in here, are really nice and big. It's like an old growth forest, and it's going to make me cry if I go there logging this. This is a super nice area. Also, after we have some new snow, there's probably going to be some surface soil issues in here. Some frost crystals on the top of the snow surface before we get the new snow, and some weaknesses there. But this is pretty low hazard skiing, a lot of it. And I've often, when the hazard's been high, I've often come all the way or up the road to about here, come up through the bush, up through here, and you can gain the top of the ridge quite nicely there without ever exposing yourself to anything. So that's kind of something to put in the back for 3 weeks from now, maybe if the house goes way up. Who's skied in here? Not very many. Not very many. Yeah, it's a small place. It's a long walk to get to there for just this little small area. But when the hazard's high, I do like it there. Okay, now we're going to go to the opposite end of the spectrum. The highway lines. And okay, who has skied this one? That's all he has there. How about this one? Oh my gosh. Ben. No?
It's on the hit list next week.
It's on the hit list next week. Tomorrow. Okay, so one of the problems, I got to zoom out just a little bit here because, well, there we go. What are the problems here? If it's on the hit list and some people are going to go out there, what are the problems? Are you going to go up the back side and then ski the front side? Because that creates its own problem of navigation when it's like red pointing rock climbing. You haven't seen the route before and you're going to go right up, right? So in this case, if you start at tunnel and then come into the top, then work your way down. You haven't seen anything before and you're looking at it for the first time from the top, right? So lots of people like to ski up something first to have a look at it, but that's a pain in the butt here to try and come up these things. So the easier access is from the top. Right? You definitely want to have your act together. And the first problem is going to be the entrance at the top here. So how do we approach cornices? You're on the lee side, and the cornice is overhanging something, and you can't see the other side. Well, how do you get to that? How do you get to a place where you can look over and safely? How do you approach it? A rope. Okay, that's one way. How do I know if I'm standing on the ground or if I'm standing on a cornice? From the probe. So I probe, I find, oh, the rocks all of a sudden starts to get deeper, right? And then I stick the probe out this way and it goes into Never Land. Okay, I've defined my edge. Now I gotta find some place where I can get close enough that I can look around the corner somewhere. So I'm gonna move around a bunch back and forth to try and find the right entrance. And then when I find that entrance, well, now I gotta really roll the dice to move down into it too. So it's a dicey move. If you don't have some sort of a history with it or some sort of beta or something like that, it's quite a committing thing to do to find your way through the top trouble and then what would be the wind loaded area at the top, and then you're into the run itself and you're looking for cliffs or anything like that, right? Quite committed. At the bottom, you're probably going to be confined to the avalanche path itself because the trees are going to be way too thick on the sides, I would think. Also, if you're if you're skiing on these ones, you come down into private property, you're probably best off to come over here where when the paths go almost to the highway. There's some avalanche mitigation mounds inside the forest there. I don't know if anybody's seen them. But that would be the exit strategy, would be to come right behind this cloud here. Yeah. Okay. Anybody have any questions with the terrain? I'm going to go to this overview. It's a big place, eh? It's not that simple. And I have some slides to talk about that, but I think I'll just run with it right now. Because it's big and offers lots of options and is a bit complicated. Even though you can do a simple line, you have lots of different things you can do. Now's the time to do those things. You just have to take into consideration the fact that it's a bit remote, that you're hopefully going to some places you haven't been to, so you need to ski in a different fashion than if you're just hammering the front lines there, the home runs, right? And then you need to take into account the fact that there's significant areas that with little or no communication. And also, if you're on the backside, extrication is a little bit challenging. The cabin owner has a road and snowmobile tracks that go up valleys. On the McDermott, it goes quite a ways. But in the Mercury Basin, the roads don't go that far. And so to get out to someplace safe is a long route to go down, and it's very difficult to go up if you've got some injured party, right? If we have weather like we have had in the last few days with lots of cloud around, no helicopter's going to come in there to help you, or it's going to be very difficult for them to come in there to help you. So yeah, you need to ski in the controlled fashion like I was talking about at the very beginning, right? Where we're a controlled group in an uncontrolled environment. So you have to treat it quite differently there. I think I'm going to just leave it at that. And wish you all the best in your stepping out or open season mindset. And have a great time until it gets really cold, you guys.
Thanks very much, Steve. Just quickly, I want to thank the Central for donating the space. It's probably, if you guys can do this on February 18th, same place, same day. Good night. Thanks for hanging out. Guys. Does it auto go to YouTube?
Date is incorrect on stream. Yep. Thanks. We'll try to get that changed.
Holy God, excellent.
Pictures.
Why don't you talk about a bear?
Probe in hand. Pick and belay. He's acting like he's answering the questions.